Here we go. So I'm here with Nigel Barker at Xcess4x4. This is one of the new differentials that he has made for my P38 ahead of the Dakar, Paris-Dakar in January. So he's just gonna, he has two side by side on the bench here. This is a standard, I guess, standard enough 4 pin, Nigel, yeah? He's just gonna go through the differences.
So this diff was built in a bit of a hurry by Land Rover to try and save, I think, military contracts, and the military wanted to have a replacement for the Salisbury, which is a hugely strong unbreakable rear axle, but very difficult to work on and very old. So they came up with this, which is basically the P38 diff that moved across into the 110. And the problem with these diffs, well, there's several problems. The first is the crown wheel. That crown wheel there, from my fingernail to the right, is very thin compared with the standard crown wheel. This is your standard crown wheel that comes out of Discoveries, Range Rovers, etc, etc. But on the P38 110s, where my fingernail is, you can see the crown wheel is an awful lot thinner.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is this allows this crown wheel to flex, and quite often it will break these bolts off here. And if these bolts break off, you can imagine they drop down and they'll destroy the crown wheel and pinion.
And was it a cost saving? Was that the idea of having it?
I don't know why they did it. It's just weird.
Yeah.
No one knows. It's just a really poor design, because that bolt is trying to hold that together, and this is trying to separate from that, and it just doesn't work. So we very rarely ever rebuild these units with the original crown wheel, because what happens is once you've rebuilt them and you put new bearings in and reset where it was, they can howl because the gear is worn in a funny position. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that this is basically a 3.5 ton towing vehicle, and this adjuster ring is clamped by 2 bolts. These are 8.8 grade bolts, and it's held in with a little pin, and that's a hollow pin. We see these come in and they're either bent, broken, missing, and if that comes out or moves and this ring moves, that adjusts the backlash. So that's very weak. That is a cost saving, there's no doubt about it at all. And then they've got the standard problem at the front here, which is a very poor shield for the pinion seal. The only thing they did get right was they went up from an M12 bolt to an M16, and on the very early casings they suffer from shuffling, which is where this carrier cap will move backwards and forwards, because the bolt is obviously smaller than the hole it goes through. And when it shuffles, it puts more strain on this pin. So the later casings actually have a collet that locks in between these two, and I think that was done.
They have a collet on both sides, do they?
On both sides, on all 4. And I think that collet went in there to actually help try and save that pin from moving about. So what we've done is we've got rid of that silly little collet. These are a plate I have CNC made, comes out the CNC machine and basically looks like that, and we clean it all up, and there's little towers that get welded in like here, and then we have our own ears that fit in here that lock it into place, and we have those made. So being a bit tarty, we also have them engraved as well, and that's put on with a nut and bolt. So now that is going back to Land Rover's original design from the 50s, right up to the mid 90s, until they decided to go across to this pin effort. So we back engineer this. We also upgrade the bolts to make sure this thing's clamped together. Those are M16 12.9 grade versus 8.8 grade, and we use a thing called a Nord-lock washer. The other problem on these is actually keeping the crown wheel bolted in place. So what we've done here is we've actually changed the centre for an ATB. Now most manufacturers, to peg it, will put it in a lathe and they'll just chew off that area there completely, leaving the crown wheel nice and thin, and then put a pad on it. We actually take a lot longer and machine this piece down to make it flat so the pad can sit on there. That then leaves the ATB holding this crown wheel in place. The problem from a machining point of view is this is incredibly hard metal to machine, but it's worth the effort. And then we upgrade these bolts to a very special bolt we buy in, and that's also got Nord-lock washers behind it. These ATBs, Quaifs and True Tracks and Ashcrofts are renowned for rattling the bolts loose.
Okay.
We've tried everything. We've tried Allen bolts, we've tried these bolts, and we've come up with this because it offers the ability to put the big heavy Nord locks behind there, which are expensive, best you can get though.
Yeah.
And then underneath, what you've got on the standard diff, you've got this funny little tin shield here, which sort of works, but what we've done is come up with our own Superflange system. So it's an aluminium billet that locks in, and that actually fits inside there. We move the seal back a little bit, and then we've also modified this. So there's your standard casing, and then we've TIG welded in all our heavy duty plates, and behind there is a phosphor bronze pad which is set up to sit against this face we've machined.
Okay, to stop it flexing.
Yep. And that basically is everything we can do. We've even upgraded the pinion bolt from an 8.8 to a 10.9 with a bigger flanged head on it. We don't ever reuse bolts, and we only ever use Timken bearings. The crown wheel itself, there is no heavy duty crown wheel made for these diffs because you can't, there's not enough metal here to get big teeth.
Yes.
We use Dana, which are from America. They're basically the best you can get. There are some horrible, cheap, nasty 110 crown wheels out there, and we've tried fitting them, and they are revolting. Yeah. This steel here, in case someone's wondering, this isn't mild. This is called Domex 700MC. If you look it up, Domex is 3 times the structural strength of mild steel. So if that's 3 mil, that's the same as putting 9 mil plate on. Okay. The towers are 4 mil, so that's the same as putting 12 mil plate on.
So
and then
they're the same, are they?
Yeah. And wow. that's something called CS80, which is even stronger. Okay. The standard Land Rover ears that are very good are stamped out. Okay. So the little hole here tends to be oval, and they're a bit rough and ready. This is laser cut, and so when we put a nut and a bolt, that is absolutely solid. That ring isn't going anywhere. Okay. And you, sir, have got 2 of those for front and rear.
Yes, perfect.
ATBs are different to the standard. So the standard diff in there is either a 2-pin in most P38 fronts. The 4-pin goes on the 4.6 rear.
On the rear only, yeah.
Yeah, and the 110 rear only. But it means that it's not got any extra traction. So a 2-pin or a 4-pin, put one wheel on the grass, one wheel on the tarmac, drop the clutch, and it will basically just spin one wheel. Right. An ATB tries to balance the drive to both wheels. It's an extra traction device. Okay. They're also incredibly strong. Right. And it will feel like you've got super glue on all 4 tyres. So if you go into a corner a bit too quick with these, on a 110 or a P38, big, heavy, tall vehicle, you know about it. Yeah. You can go into the same corner with this on and just pop out the other side and say, well, wasn't that fun? Well, you
this is probably even an upgrade to what I have at the moment. I have two pins, front and rear.
And they are very prone to break.
Yeah.
So on a 2-pin diff, you basically have that with 2 gears each side. So you have a gear on each side and a gear top and bottom. That's your 2-pin. Yeah. When they do a 4-pin diff, what they do is that. So they actually take 50% of the metal out, and then you've got 4 gears and a gear top and bottom. Yes. What we do when we build a 4-pin is we throw that away and we build those, which we have made. Okay. I've not seen one of these break in the 15 years I've been using them, and they were also made at CAM for another 10 years. So I haven't seen one break in probably the best part of 20 years. They are bonkers strong.
And that's in that, yeah?
No, that would be an upgrade for a standard 4-pin. Okay. In an ATB, there are no shafts at all. It's just solid gears. Okay. ATBs have a mixture of these sort of gears. Yeah. So instead of having shafts and gears, it's got 6 of those on each side, 2 of those, 1 of those, and then 2 big drive gears, and the whole lot goes together into there. And this is immensely strong. And it works in that it will never ever lock. It's not a locker, but it will always try and equalize the speed that each wheel is going. Okay. And I would argue that an ATB, even though it's an extra traction type diff, is stronger and kinder to the vehicle than that. Because if you pull out of a junction a bit sharpish with an open 4-pin diff, you can light up one wheel. Okay. that means 100% of your horsepower is going to one tyre, and then that tyre suddenly grips, and that's when it goes bang. When you pull out the junction a bit sharpish like this, it will stop that wheel spinning and send traction to the one that isn't moving.
She's more planted, like.
It's absolutely, it's like super glue on each four tyres. People underestimate these. They think a locker's the answer. If you think of this, this is on a scale of 0 to 10. This is 0.
Right.
No traction whatsoever, just a differential to allow you to go around corners. 10 is a locker.
Yeah.
So you press the button and you go from 0 to 10, and there's nothing in between.
Right.
So if you drive a double lockered vehicle on the road, it's 0.
Right.
When you go off road and you press a button, it's 10.
Right.
This in a straight line is 0. Go around a corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8, possibly even 9 if you've got traction control. It's linear. It comes in and goes out nice and smoothly. There's no buttons to press. It's all fully automatic, but it's a traction enabling unit. You drive one of these on a wet, slippy road or in ice and snow and dirt and mud, and people are surprised just how good they are. No human intervention needed, no buttons to press, no compressor, pipe work, and it's kind to the vehicle. If you press a locker when you're moving a bit too quick, you go from 0 to 10, so does everything inside goes from 10 to 0. And we see all sorts of carnage coming in. Lockers will hunt out and damage your vehicle. It will find a weaker spot and keep breaking it. These are actually kinder to the vehicle than those in many ways. But hugely underestimated, brilliant diff. We build loads of them, and everyone that fits them is massively surprised. The strange thing with these is if you put a locker in the rear of your vehicle, people do cartwheels. They go, Nigel, it's fantastic. It's, oh, God, it's superb. I'm going to have a front. And I warn them they'll be disappointed. Because the back axle does 70, 80% of the work and the front does 20, 30 maybe. They fit an ATB to the rear and they're equally impressed. And they go, oh, wow. And I tell them, when you fit one to the front, you will be amazed because you haven't got this 0-10. You've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've got this linear traction on the front. Incremental, Because bear in mind, if you put a locker in the front of a vehicle and hit the button so it's locked, your steering is almost non-existent. An ATB will still allow you to steer even in heavy mud. So they are massively underestimated and a great, great locker, a great unit to put in other than a locker.
So all in all, this is a massive upgrade on that, let alone a 2-pin.
Your 2-pin is one revolution from letting go and braking. The 4-pin is badly made with this sort of nonsense and no traction and can easily still break. The centre is a cheap casting. This is billet machine CNC centre, very hard steel, no shafts. It's just got gears and springs inside. The only thing that tends to break these is people that break a half shaft or a crown wheel and pinion, and then the bits get in here. But as a unit itself, they rarely break. They're that strong. And then this again has been upgraded with all the bits and bobs that we do to it, like the Domex and the stronger bolts and the stronger bolts here and the pegging system.